But football is like so many different unique body types and sizes and position needs. And to me, it's that kind of ultimate cohesion with the team for success. And I think business is very similar to that, especially, building companies before you get that infrastructure set, really.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the How Did It Happen podcast. I am very, very excited today because I have an old friend on the podcast with me who will be your new friend when we get done with this. Bobby Kraft joins me on the show today. Bobby, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Mike. It's an honor to be here. And I love the Brewers hat as I have my Atlas World Sports hat on. So thanks for fitting the theme.
Well, I knew we were going to be talking sports. I normally wear my podcast hat, but I specifically chose this hat just for you, Bobby.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I appreciate it.
And the Brewers are doing very well too, so we'll see where that ends.
They've been awesome to follow, and we had a tough loss with the Packers opener yesterday. So hopefully, maybe they'll start following more of the Bucks and the Brewers and kind of just start winning.
Yeah,
again.
We're really hoping so, because yes, that was a very ugly loss for the Packers, but they will recover as well. I'm
Absolutely.
quite sure.
They always do.
So I promise you every week that I bring you an amazing success story, and I certainly am going to do that today. Let me tell you a little bit about Bobby Kraft. So Bobby has almost 20 years of experience working in the direct marketing industry. After an illustrious football career that earned him an opportunity to play for the Charleston Swamp Foxes in the Arena Football League, Bobby began his career as a licensed financial advisor before transitioning to direct marketing and becoming CEO and growing a global company, that's global with a G, with over 600 employees speaking 10 different languages, working in printing plants around the country and maybe around the world. In the last 5 years, Bobby has moved into the tech sectors of marketing, especially the burgeoning world of sports betting. Earlier this year, which is 2021, Bobby founded Atlas World Sports, which he describes as the kayak mixed with Expedia for sports fans. So let's put this into gear and take off. Bobby, I start every podcast the same way, and it's with a question. How did it happen for you?
Well, I'll kind of give a little bit enough, and then I'll let you steer it, because if you just let me run on that open question, I think the podcast will end with you never speaking the rest of the time. So I'll try to be respectful here.
Well, people are here to listen to you, not me.
And your listeners. Sure. Well, we want to make sure it's a good back and forth, right?
Here we go.
I guess the long story short, my family is originally from Detroit. I was born there, moved through Chicago, got to Milwaukee, where my dad was, took over a company in the point of purchase area. So I always grew up around business in an entrepreneurial family. He ended up starting his first venture when I was in grade school in printing and direct marketing. And being around that my whole life outside of football and sports, that is something, a huge passion of our family. My sister Kelly played college golf. She had a scholarship at Wisconsin. She was a great athlete and still is to this day. She just has mom duties that get in the way of playing as much anymore. But she ended up transferring to college at Charleston and played down there. My brother my younger brother, Sean, ended up playing college football out at Fairfield. He and I both went through Marquette High School. So it's kind of one of those things, though, outside of sports, we're always around business. And it was always a passion of mine. Like when I was a little kid, I remember trying to figure out how to make money and all that. Well, just do a lemonade stand. Oh, that's for suckers. Nobody makes money on lemonade stands because who drives by and just stops. So when I was in fifth grade, I started the first lawn mowing company, and that was kind of the thing. And I'd go knock door to door and ask people if they'd let me give them a free estimate, like that was really a value. But either way, just kind of built it up that way, no different than anything else. And I just really had a love for serving people. And then I kind of tried to hire on a couple kids around the neighborhood. And the team thing has always been something that's been huge for me and for my family, as has, really the productivity on behalf of serving others. And so then kind of as I was always around my dad's business, it would be just questions of, okay, well, why do you guys make that? And what's the market for that? And this is when I was in grade school and just had an interest of it. And then from there, certainly going through college and playing football, got into the, financial services industry. And my dad asked me to come back to Milwaukee to be part and kind of help out on one of his businesses where, something hadn't gone well with a previous partner. So then that kind of got me into that world. And I looked at it and I just thought, geez, this printing thing is just brutal. This is now the early 2000s. And I just looked at it like, I'm a cell phone. I was a cell phone guy even at that point when you're on those, kind of QWERTY keyboards and had to, hit, the same button 3 times to get a certain letter all the way through.
Early
And,
adopter.
yeah, that would be right. And
Okay.
so I remember texting friends early on that you'd give a wire and answer or whatever back for if we're going to meet up tonight. But I remember seeing that with printing and in that business and just thought, this isn't where it's at. Software is where it's at. Software is. So, my entrepreneurial career kind of went through that and trying to acquire printing companies that were failing and fix them. That was kind of my thing. That was the best way kind of that I thought through it. And and the industry changed tremendously. And certainly at Obamacare time, we had a huge position in insurance and limited medical insurance to the tune where we invested multiple millions of dollars into presses as a result of the big insurance companies asking us to do so, such as Cigna, Assurant, which is no longer in Milwaukee, Delta Dentals. And then when that government mandate came, it changed everything. It kind of flipped us upside down, just all this debt, and then ended up getting out of it in 2015 and having to liquidate and went through a, painful period in business, but it was a learning. It was a failure learning.
Mm.
And so then I kind of went through there and it was like, all right, clean board, what do I really want? Am I an entrepreneur? And if I'm an entrepreneur, I'm going to want to get right back into it. I'm not going to run and hightail and go and work for a corporation. I had all these offers. I could have done whatever I wanted. I just said no. I loved the building process. I loved the team process. I loved that creation process and kind of a little bit of everything. One day you're emptying your own garbage, and the next day, you're creating a new product, and then the third day you're making coffee for people, maybe, or whatever. It's, as an entrepreneur, Mike, you certainly know this. It's just kind of, hey, where am I needed most, and then you build teams and you kind of delegate when you get to a certain level. But I had the opportunity to sit back and reflect, and I saw everything going on, and I knew like software was what we were really building always. And that's where I always saw the huge value inside of the print sector was any of the PDFs that were moving around. And we created a tremendous, highly profitable division within our company that was really the source of what kept the printing plants going. It was all the dynamic document creation. So we wrote software that then just built the ability for us to change documents for UBS, Union Bank of Switzerland, any of their 401k recipients, pension plan recipients around the country. We would then, dynamically create those as, what was Sears at the time as well, Target employee, whomever it would be. That was all created and either sent to them via mail or email as well. And it would also update in a profile. We created all those platforms. That was starting in 2005 when I would go back and forth to New York City because I saw the value of software. So then fast forward to when I get out of it, now it was time to reassess. And I just saw, just kind of, I had some friends kind of in the software and TV space, kind of media, tech, and a few of them kind of did some things. So I started poking around and I kind of got going in the digital thing again. And then PASPA happened in May of 2018. And that's when the Supreme Court ruled on sports betting and flipping over that law that was in place since 1992 under Senator Bill Bradley as one of the sponsors of it. And at that point, that was when I saw my ultimate Venn diagram come together of sports, business and marketing colliding. And I just thought, geez, if this thing isn't made for me, I don't know what is. And my real thought was these sports books are going to go huge into marketing. They're going to try to create loyalty programs to allow people to bet in whatever state, add points so they can eventually fly to Vegas. Because I've always just known enough. And I've actually done a lot of marketing in the past for the casinos and some of the Vegas entities. In fact, we tried to acquire a marketing company in Las Vegas around 2010 to 2012. We were always in negotiations. So I was very intimate with kind of those loyalty programs. We did a lot for American Airlines in the past, and their Advantage program. So just was familiar with, and I just kind of had this vision of where this thing's going to go. And I just thought, geez, they're going to try to get everybody sitting on their couch to make a bet of $20, $50, whatever's comfortable. And then you're going to get loyalty points so that you can eventually go take a trip out to Vegas and dump that money back to them, And I just thought, geez, I see this thing. And it was just kind of a light bulb moment. So really since then in 2018, and it was kind of behind the scenes that I was just kind of thinking about it, noodling and doing my homework, going to conferences, the standard stuff you do. And then it came to fruition where I found the right software development team offshore. Now they're all part of the team. We have 12 guys on the team, just an incredible group of co-founders. And we've launched our app as of a week ago. We're in the App Store, we're in iOS, we're in Android, and we have a brand new website that's up, rock and rolling. And our 2.0 will be, out in 5 weeks, which would be the middle to end of October, basically. So that's kind of how it happened, in as close of a nutshell as I can give it to you, Mike.
Yeah, you gave us a ton there, so I'm gonna go back and dissect some of that if you don't mind. But before I forget, what is the website so that everyone knows what
it's www.atlasworldsports.com. ATLAS World Sports plural.com.
How'd you come up with the name?
It was one of those, you've been through these exercises of starting a company and kind of what do I name it and all this. Where I went with the exercise was, I was kind of at this inflection point, I guess, of my life where it was just like, man, it's just been kind of a grind and a challenge, if you will. And you're either up to the challenge or you're not. You fold or you kind of get stronger and get more resolve. And, I just started thinking of just things I admire. And then I eventually got over to the kind of Greek gods and that type of world, Greek mythology. And, I remember the story of Zeus and outcasting Atlas, who was one of his sons, and, that kind of thing. And then he had to put the weight of the world on his shoulders, and that was his penalty. And I thought, that's kind of cool. That's a little bit of like, kind of overcoming stuff. And and then I always thought Atlas world maps and kind of and I kind of thought, all right, maybe there's a play with this where people might make a mental connection of Atlas. And if we're kind of the roadmap for sports betting and sports books, maybe there's a little bit of a tie there. But I just thought, I like the symbol of strength, and we're sports. So, the Greek gods were, the Greeks really came up with the Olympics. So, I thought there were just kind of a lot of ties there. So that was really it. It was just but it was one of those exercises where I was like, okay, something in this line, let's go. And then you kind of days and weeks and you ask people and they say that's terrible or that's awesome. And you kind of keep working it.
Well, I like it. And you know what it reminds me of, and I'm maybe a little old school, but the Atlas part, I think everybody gets, but then it reminds me of Wide World of Sports, which used to be probably for a long time, the place where you went to consume sports.
That's right.
Especially like not football, all the other sports that never got any TV or anything. So anyway, that's what I kind of put together when you were talking about it.
Yeah. Thank you.
This thing with the lawn mowing was so funny because the free estimate thing, I was like, I can just see it. It's like free estimate, no obligation, because that's such a big thing now is to, right. You give people this sort of no obligation quote or proposal. Everybody's saying that these days. And I could just see you going around as a little kid in 5th grade, just making this pitch to people.
Yeah, I remember because I asked my dad, I was like, hey, give me a good hook or something. Just tell me to give him a free estimate. I'm like, you should give him a free estimate, shouldn't you? He goes, well, just say it. They'll kind of know. But I was like, all right, Dad.
Yeah, right. As if I normally charge $10 for
an estimate. Hey, $10 and I'll walk your lawn.
But in your case, I give it to you for free. So tell me about this, your whole family is very sports oriented, very talented, I guess, in sports. And you end up in the Arena Football League coming out of a small school, like a D3 school, right?
That's right.
Which is
University in Cleveland, Ohio. We have 3 general managers in the NFL now. Yeah,
well, that's a great program, right? Even though it's a D3 school, but a great program. So what was it like when you had to make, I don't know, when you get drafted into something. I assume there's a draft for I'm assuming there was. Tell me what it was like to get in there and you were there
Yeah,
for a year or maybe,
yeah,
about
it
a
was
year or
one
something.
season, and the most interesting thing. So the real thing was, in high school, the goal is, okay, I'm playing at Marquette High School, and I just said, look, I want to play college football. And people are like, well, you're small, you're this and that, and this would be junior year. And I'm like, well, I'll work out as hard as I have to. You tell me, what do I need to do to get there? Give me the metrics.
Yeah.
And I remember talking to coaches, and and then as simple as a conversation with your dad, and then he goes, "Well, if you want to do it, you'll figure it out." Okay, well, anything more you can give me? Nah, you'll figure it out. Okay, all right.
I could have
Thanks.
told myself that.
Yeah. I kind of understood that coming into this, dad, but thanks.
Yeah.
Then you just kind of, I guess it's like anything else. You're on, you know, high intake, if you will. So anything in the world or realm of that, whether it's you hear a brother's got an older, a buddy's got an older brother who's playing college football somewhere, and you just say, I want to meet him when he's back in town, and then I want to pick his brain and get his. And you'd ask for like their workouts or whatever. And next thing you know, you're using somebody's workout from Nebraska, where, they were kind of front, they were really the ones who came up with a lot of the plyometrics and agility type of training, speed kills. That was all the Tommy Frazier days. And when they were running the option under Tom Osborne and just killing everybody, they were just bigger, faster, and stronger. But so then I get into college, and London Fletcher was one of my teammates. He'll be a first ballot Hall of Famer in the NFL. Josh McDaniels, who's the offensive coordinator at the Patriots. Nick Caserio, who is now the general manager of the Texans. That was one of my quarterbacks. My other quarterback is the head coach for Akron now. I mean, we've got all these guys floating.
All these guys on your team.
Yeah, Brandon Staley, who's now the head coach for the Los Angeles Chargers. He did not play with me, but he coached at John Carroll after I was gone.
Oh, I just read about that. They
had
a story on the Wall Street Journal.
Yeah. So these are all our guys. I mean,
wow.
So I know all these guys. So I mean, we had a blast. Like it was tough. Yesterday, I told my girlfriend, I was just like, just so you know, this is football season, Bobby. Like, and this is kind of like religion. So we're gonna, Tuesdays is a free night, and Wednesday is a free night. It didn't go over very well, so I think I'm gonna have to back it down a little bit to maybe Badger games and Packers games. But it's like negotiation. You throw it way out there, and you always
yeah, right. Might as well ask for more than you actually can get away with, can absorb.
Yeah,
right? Yeah,
exactly. So London Fletcher was in the NFL at the time, and he was playing for the Rams, and Don Shula went through John Carroll, and there's just this great legacy. In fact, my dad played college football there. He was a quarterback, so I was always kind of recruited as a kid from them. I had a walk-on opportunity at Purdue, but then once I visited John Carroll, it's like, yeah, this just feels like Marquette High. There's a family atmosphere. Cleveland is a great city. Cleveland and Milwaukee, to me, they're very good. There's a lot of quiet money, but there's also that kind of blue collar, just
good work ethic,
love of state, love of city, just sports towns, good, hardworking people, good people. And, I went there and I just thought, this is me, this is my city. And I wanted to go, out of state for sure. Nothing against Wisconsin. I love Wisconsin, obviously, but I needed that, kind of, I'm all by myself kind of thing, figure out and go on my journey. And so then I was playing and started, in fact, I got, a lot of, I did not make All-American. My punt returner, kick returner with me, David Ziegler, who's now the head of player personnel at the Patriots. He was All-American, and he and I were together, but I got all kinds of national accolades as a punt returner, kick returner. And so that's when I got kind of talks with an agent, and a guy was like, yeah, you can play. You've got the numbers to play in the NFL. So I got invited to an NFL feeder combine. That was my real goal. It was like the NFL or bust.
Yep.
And so I ended up my genuine actual, numbers, which are the inflated numbers that people will say all the time. Some guy says his 40 time, and it's like, it's like a world record. He tells you, and you're like, all right, why didn't you go anywhere? Oh, I don't know, dude. Like, so my actual combine numbers, I had a 4.51 in the 40. My standing vertical, which unlike the NBA allows guys to take running, kind of a running step or a couple steps and then jump. NFL has you have to have both your feet placed. You can't even move them. So they have to be like locked, and they watch to make sure you don't even slide. So my vertical was 36 inches. And then I ran the pro agility time, which is, 5 yards to the right touch and then come back touch and then across. So it's like a 20-yard shuttle.
Yep.
I ended up tying Joey Galway and Barry Sanders' record for that, which was 3.92 that I ran in that. And then, my bench was 225 18 times. So, I was ready to play. So all my numbers were there. And I remember sitting with my agent. He said, "Hey, you got everything you're going for you, except a couple of things." I said, "Okay, what's the problem?" He said, "Look, numbers, your ability, your athleticism." He said, "You can play with anybody. You know that. You've played with these guys." He said, you're one thing that's going against you, small school." I said, "Okay, not a big deal, right?" No, not that big of a deal.
Good pedigree school though for D3.
Yeah, but it was right kind of, I graduated in 2000, so it was right at that time where they're like, they knew they could find some kind of diamonds in the rough, but it wasn't as popular to be the guy that's like, I found, or the program to find that guy. Now the Patriots, and it's really because there's 7 guys on the John Carroll staff that have been there since early 2000s. I think they were the ones who really convinced Belichick and Robert Kraft, the other Robert Kraft.
The other one, yes.
The other one, that guy.
Yes.
But I think they really convinced him or those guys to say, "Look, we got some guys that they weren't blue chips because they didn't grow till maybe their junior year in high school. Whereas guys get offered scholarships their sophomore year in high school if they're a blue chip." Well, you hope that. And so what we really had at John Carroll were guys that are maybe an inch or two shorter, maybe 10 pounds lighter, and maybe a step behind, but smarter, and I would argue tougher than anybody playing at those big programs. I saw guys, when I took my first hit from Lennon Fletcher, I'd never been hit so hard in my life. And he got the Iron Man award because he never missed any games in the NFL. And you ask any NFL guy, and they're like, "That guy was an animal." Any guys I've ever talked to, they said, "Oh my God, you play college football with him? He was nuts. He was great." Like, London is smart, tough, brought everything, and that was kind of the work ethic. And we also pride ourselves on outthinking everybody. But so then, so I sat in there, and I remember this agent telling me, he said, "Then the other thing is you're, smaller, you're 5'9", 190 pounds. I said, "Okay, that's not an issue." No problem. I said, "What's last?" He said, he literally said this to me, and I just almost fell out of my chair. He said, "You're the wrong color." I said, "You're kidding me." And he said, "General managers don't want to take a chance on a white guy at that position, because if you are, pulled in and playing and you make it, fine. But if you don't make it, and then that other guy goes somewhere else and they didn't pick him, if that guy ever gets deemed racist, that general manager gets deemed racist, then they're kind of blackballed as a general manager." I said, "You're kidding me. That stuff really happens." He said, "Yeah, that does." I'm not going to say the agent's name. I'm going to get it because this is a controversial story, of course, that could, come back to bite somebody. But it was amazing. I sat there. I said, "This is impossible. Is this the world we live in?" And he just said, "Yeah, that's it." So he said, we had 5 NFL teams that were very interested in me, by the way, too. And so after that, I said, "Well, we can work through that." I said, "I still know that I get a shot." So the one team that was willing to give me a shot and it was flying me in, and they said they had a contract for me, was the Green Bay Packers. They were flying me in. I got on an airplane. I was about to get on an airplane. He called me up. My agent calls me up and he said, "You're not going to believe this. You're not going to believe what team wants you." I said, "I don't care who wants me." But I figured it was the Browns because I'm in their backyard. He goes, "No, the Packers." I said, "You're kidding me." Oh my God, went stark white. And I was just like, I'm ready to go.
Yeah, I guess.
You need to get on a plane and they're going to work you out tomorrow, but they want you in as a punt returner, kick returner. Oh, are you kidding me? This is awesome. So I'm about to get on a plane, and then that very next morning I get a phone call, and I was like, I was at the point I hadn't had a beer in 6 weeks, just chicken and like rice and broccoli for dinner with not even like cream sauce on it,
yeah, you're just hardcore nutrition.
Yeah, I was like I got to 5.5% body fat. It was just, making sure you're getting your 8 hours of sleep every night, just really listening to your body and all that. So I was ready. So I wake up the next day. I'm all excited and about to go to the airport. Cleveland Hopkins was going to fly in. And that's when Continental still had their hub out in Cleveland. So I could get a direct flight into Green Bay at that time. And he calls me up in the morning and says, "Hey, you got to cancel your flight." I was like, what are you talking about? There's some weather or something? No, they just signed away the last roster spot to a receiver for camp. It was like their 10th or 11th for the camp body or whatever. I said, "You kidding me? How does he do that from the special teams?" Well, they had one spot between either special teams or receiver. And receiver coach did it while special teams coach was on vacation, coming back from vacation or whatever, gone for the day or whatever it was. And that was it. I was just like, went from just so pumped to just like, wow, that is just like in matter of moments like that, your life can just be flipped from like, this is it. Because they said, like, we want you in. I was like, okay, cool. I go out there. All they needed to do was do the quick check and make sure I can actually run the way my number said and everything's, do the physical. And then it's like, here's your contract.
Yeah.
And that was it. So then it was like, all right, now I can go either to Canada. I had talks in the Canadian Football League, or I had arena talks. And my sister, having gone to college at Charleston, coming back to that now, she was living in Charleston, and so I was like, I want to go somewhere warm at least. If I'm playing football, I don't want to go to Canada. Like I'm from Wisconsin. Let me get some palm trees.
Got enough of that, sure.
Let me get some palm trees if I'm playing football and I know it's temporary. And my whole goal was to just to play arena for one season and try to get the knock, with the NFL. And if it didn't happen, then move on with my life. And it didn't happen. So on to business, right?
So there was, what was your career like that year? Did you do punt and kick returns, or did you do other things? What was playing?
Yeah. And of course, arena football is just a shortened field. It's 50 yards, goal line to goal line. And then I can't remember the exact width dimensions, but it's 24 yards wide, I think, something like that, whatever it is. I can't remember exactly, but so when you're catching a kickoff, because there are no punts, everybody goes for it on fourth down or kicks the field goal. You're catching it. You have to learn to turn around and catch it off the net because it goes up above you.
Sure, yeah.
Bounces around, and then you got your back to guys, and they're going to just, it's like, this is garbage. Why do I want to do that? But anyway, so we right when we started the season, we get in, and we're kind of going, and even there, I learned politics. It was like they had a guy starting from the Citadel who, I'd beaten out, but one of the coaches pulled me aside and they're like, "Dude, they need attendance, just so you know." So they're trying to play a few of these local guys first. I was like, all right, it's fine. Even though it was clear and the guys in the locker room. So it was interesting to see kind of that. It created an issue. I'm the Northern guy. I was the Yankee on the team too. So that was a whole different thing, different culture.
How was the selection process? That is the last question I want to ask you.
Yeah. I mean, it was just, they worked me out, same thing. There's a camp, you get workouts, and they brought in 2 times more. They signed 2 times more guys for the camp than they kept. And it was it. And then I got traded to a team in Georgia, but they wouldn't get me out of they can't buy me out of my leases and all that. And I'm making no money, aside from, enough to cover food from the team, kind of thing, like $500 a week, maybe, or something like that, whatever the game checks were. And I was like, well, I got to get out of this lease. I signed this lease. Like, I'm on the hook for it. Well, it's on you. And I was like, I'm upside down already as it is. And then now, and they just said, well, that's part of it. I said, well, I can't take this. So then at that same time, that's when my, dad said, hey, why don't you come on back and help out with this business in Milwaukee? You got traded. So, because I was kind of keeping them, my parents posted, and it was one of those deals. And, if I could come back and help. And I said, well, I hadn't planned on coming back, but since it was asking for help, I was like, yeah, okay, that's it. So that was it. So I figured after that season was over, that was a wrap, and it was time to go back to Milwaukee, and love the city. And then, and since then now I'm Milwaukee and Chicago. So I'm back and forth.
That had to be a real kick in the teeth to get that call when you were getting on that flight, and then, end up still playing in the Arena League, different rules, different field, different, especially for you, more dangerous, and then for $500 a week, that had to be that's a real turnaround that probably took you a little while to get, your head around that turnaround?
Yeah, it was a real, yeah, it was definitely pretty raw, and, some eating crow, you think you're like, oh, this is it. I'm finally getting that shot. And then just like that, it's taken away. But it was a great lesson in life. And it's just the way life goes. And we have these plans and we think we're unstoppable and all that. And then all of a sudden you get that wake up call and it's like, yeah, you're not everything you think you are. And you're like, holy cow. So
Right.
so it's been really good, and it helps, probably helped me appreciate more certain moments when you're in them more often, and knowing that this is the greatest place I want to be right now, right at this very moment. But if you're cognizant maybe that you may never be able to return to that same space. And it's helped me kind of enjoy those certain moments, when it's time to unplug on the weekends or something. It's like, I'm going to stay in that space where I am with family or friends or whatever that might be, versus checking everybody else's social media or doing work or whatever. But then when I'm working, it's like, get 100% into that. And that's the time you do that. So I think those kind of lessons to me have been, really good, because I also got to know, I also got to test my mettle. I got to test my rear to see how far could I go, and can I mentally handle, these guys that are, played at Florida State that were teammates of mine and these other places. And if I can run with those guys and work out with them, then, I can kind of do it anywhere, because I'm the little white guy that wasn't supposed to play probably high school football, right? According to the way, if somebody would do the eyeball test, they would have looked and been like, yeah, and put him off to the side. And then you keep going and you realize you're faster and you're stronger and you're smarter. And then when somebody gives you a shot, you don't want to let them down. Well, I think the same thing in business. I think the same thing in life with your friends and your family is like, look, if somebody's going to bet on me, I owe them everything, and, I'll keep fighting till I can, take care of people and do things the right way. When somebody puts their neck out for me, because I think too few people are willing to put their neck out for people, in this day and age. And I think part of it is too many people often ask for others to put their neck out for them when they don't really mean those words. They say, I need help. It's like, do you really, you have a flat tire on the side of the road. You can figure this one out. You don't need me to show up and tow you and do your tire and drive an hour out of my way. Like, if you can't emotionally handle that, maybe I shouldn't have you in my life. Like, I'm talking like real stuff. Like, if you really need real issues in your life, here's the shirt. I'll take it right off my back and you can have it if that's real. But if you call me and do the, boy who cried wolf stuff or whatever, I think that's, so a lot of those lessons, come from football. I mean, football to me has been so good, because the locker room, you have a guy who's a kicker who, is not really hitting people, but he's got to feel part of the team. And if he doesn't, he could cost the game if he misses that field goal at the end. But same way, the linemen, it's not like they're scoring touchdowns, but you need them to make those holes. And
so everybody's got an important role.
Yeah, and you get these unique personalities. I think some of these other sports are all great, but football is like so many different unique body types and sizes and position needs. And to me, it's that kind of ultimate cohesion with the team for success. And I think business is very similar to that, especially, building companies before you get that infrastructure set, really.
That was great what you said about sticking your neck out, because there's a lot of people who, like you said, they are asking for help, but what they really want is for you to do something for them.
Yeah.
They don't want help. They want, it's hard. So they want somebody
make my problems go away.
Yeah. Make my problem go away. Yeah. Tell me what to do it for me, all of that stuff.
Yeah. 100%. And I can only imagine, Mike, I mean, boy, you transitioned out when you were bought out maybe 7 years ago, 8 years ago, something like that.
Yeah. It's pretty good. Yes. 2015.
Yeah. Yeah. So I can only imagine, I mean, after that occurred, you have time to take a breath and get away and enjoy with the family and your close friends and board members or, whomever, and you do that. And, so then the high five and honeymoon tour goes on for a while. And then eventually, things reset, but, when you get back to whatever you're going to go and do next and get into and other things. But I can imagine the amount of people, kind of once that information was public, that reach out and are asking for you to fix something in there. It's not necessarily help. as from wisdom standpoint or whatever, but just like make this problem of mine go away because we've been friends for 10 years or something else. So
Yeah,
I can
yeah,
only
yeah.
imagine that position that you've probably been in as a result of your success.
Yeah, you do. You get some of that. I got some of that. I get a lot of. I've gotten a lot of, brainstorm with me sort of thing, where, which I don't mind help, being as valuable as I can, but sometimes there's nothing happening there, and it's
Yeah.
just an exercise in,
Yeah.
picking someone's brain, that kind of thing. But
Yeah.
anyway, I'm glad you brought that up and made that distinction, because it's an important one.
Yeah.
So. So let's move into business. Your dad calls you up and says, "Hey, whatever, I could use some help, or, I need you, whatever it is." You come and, you discover early, I think you said, that, printing is just a brutal, brutal business. And for those of you who don't know much about printing, it for 2 decades now, maybe, certainly for a decade, it's been a very, 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 very tough business. So there's been a lot of consolidation, and a lot of companies have gone out of business. But what you said that I think was really cool was that when you came in, you saw that, and you weren't like, "Okay, Dad, here's how you've played it. Here's how we're going to play it, because this is how you play. So we got to cut costs. We got to do this. We got to do this. We got to do this, because that's the only way for us to survive." It sounded like you said, "Well, wait a second, this isn't about surviving. This is about thriving. How do we make this into a business that thrives?" Am I on the right track there?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. You bet. And
And
we went through 7 acquisitions as a result of that.
yeah, so tell me about the strategy. Like, how long did it take you to see it, convince your dad and whomever else needed to
Yeah.
be convinced, and then get out there and start making it happen?
Yeah. I mean, it was, I started writing the business plan for it when I was 23, right when I got back, because I looked at it, I was like, this thing is not viable. And I'm 23, so what do I know? But if I know at 23 it's not viable, I felt pretty good that that was probably the right decision. And and that's just going on, my business school, teachings, and I actually reached out to a few of my professors at that time, and I said, can I bounce some of our financials off you, and just because here's what I think, and here's some of the moves. What do you think? And it was they were really great. The John Carroll business school was great, because they obviously love helping former students, but it was like, it was a project together. It was a really fun collaboration to work with them on that. So then I wrote the new business plan, figured out how to acquire business, and just kind of started building it from there. But so when I was 25 when we got it going. By the time I kind of got the little seed capital to get it going, and just started building and buying off of cash flow. And versus the industry I'm in now, it's like they don't even want to hear about cash flow. It's crazy in the tech industry. Like they're like burn
active
users,
money, whatever.
It's all about monthly downloads and your monthly active users, right? And it's like, those are the KPIs. It's not like EBITDA, and you're not talking,
traditional business metrics out the window.
It's incredible. So at that time I was doing on traditional metrics, of course, and it's like, okay, nobody's going to talk to you unless you have cash flow going and you've got this, and then built it up. But the tough thing was, it was probably right around, it was just before the Great Recession hit. So 2007, I found a company called Metagraphics, headquartered in Phoenix, and saw them, and that they had written and developed their own software platform inside that ran their 2 facilities. They had a facility in New Berlin, Wisconsin as well. So just a suburb here in Milwaukee. I saw them, and I knew they were having problems. So at this point I was looking at, look, the best way to buy in the printing industry is distressed assets. Like, they probably have a book of business, but they have, their fixed cost structure is upside down, and downward pressure on cash, et cetera. So how do we kind of retool these things? Because even then I saw it as like, all right, I'm kind of in this because I was asked to be in this. Turning was never anything I was dreaming of being in. But I've always been fascinated by computers and software since I was a kid. When I was in 8th grade, I first started doing some DOS programming on my own. I got intrigued by it. And then I realized I was like, oh, this is kind of boring because this is just memorization. And once you know how to do this, like I didn't see like a lot of value for me personally, just coding, even though those guys are tremendously valuable. But me personally, I was like, I like if I could figure out the right team that does that one day, I'd be interested in being involved in that. So I always thought that would be somewhere I would get into. But then I got pulled into the print space. And then when I saw this company with the software, then I saw it as like, oh, if we could roll this thing up and use our software platform, maybe we could migrate over time outside of the, CapEx and really into, doing the thinking for companies and or digital marketing and really focus on where everything's going to computers. And I will say, I definitely saw everything going to cell phones. I saw cell phone payments occurring when I was, in 2008, 2009. It was like, it's just a matter of time before you can make a payment and people would be like, you're an idiot. Why are you talking about this? I said, you can kind of see where, it's the Wayne Gretzky stuff. If you're in a space and in an industry, you can kind of anticipate where that hockey puck's going to go. I mean, that's right. What everybody said. What made you great, Wayne Gretzky? Well, I didn't skate to where the hockey puck is. I skated where it's going to go. And I think that's the same thing in business. And I've always seen that kind of with marketing and technology, really technology. And you said early adopter earlier. And I think that's probably true. I'm not necessarily a first adopter because I like to let others get the kinks out of stuff because there are times where I definitely see something. I'm like, it just doesn't seem practical. I don't know where the 2.0 of this whatever software is or toy gizmo. But once things kind of have a little bit of a toehold, then I like to get them and say, how does this improve my life? In fact, as I sit here, I have an electronic notebook now. So I've gotten that. It's called Remarkable. I don't know if you can see
cool.
that.
Yeah, I can.
Yeah, so it's pretty cool. So it integrates all your PDFs as well. So I can integrate it with my Dropbox. And so you can do notes on it and then just uploads right away, or you just use it as a notepad and then flip pages, just like a notepad.
Yeah. I got to talk to you about that offline because my daughter bought me one of those for not Remarkable, is another brand for Christmas. And I've been thinking it's on my desk, Bobby. And I'm like, what am I going to do with this thing?
Yeah.
Cause I'm like old school. I'm writing notes, in a book here.
Yeah. Well, and I just got it last week.
This is not scalable.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And I just got it last week. It just got in and I got it on, seeing some ads on Instagram, and I was kind of keeping an eye on it for about 3 months and saying, yeah, I love everything about it. I'm going to try it. And then finally I pulled the trigger. So over the weekend, I was kind of integrating everything and playing with it. So I'll have more to report back to you in a week or two for sure.
Okay.
But I mean, it's, to me, that thing, I was like, well, right when they started doing Remarkable 1, I was like, yeah, we'll see. This is now called Remarkable 2. So early adopter, but not the first, of course. And that's kind of the thing.
It had to become more remarkable before you were.
Yeah. Super remarkable. Yeah. Totally remarkable, or whatever, whatever superlative you want to add. But so the software thing. So really in 2008, and then of course, the Great Recession hits, but my whole thing was convincing the board, and, I'm the only non-baby boomer that's part of this thing. But I'm tasked with making it successful, but at the same time, so it's just, the dynamics of that. And hey, I see this, and, it's tough when you're talking to people who aren't necessarily tech geeks or something.
Yeah, sure. It can be a lot of blank stare, or it can be like, you're crazy.
Yeah. And I got all that, and that's okay. Yeah. And that's good business, because you should have that dialogue as well too. I mean, I think if your board doesn't tell you you're crazy, then I think you're probably not pushing hard enough as a CEO or vice versa, or they're not pushing you hard enough or whatever. But, but I saw it. I was like, God, these printing presses, these are $1 million printing presses. These things are just huge honking things that, you're taking so much, getting the commodities in there. You have so much maintenance on them. And once again, printing presses, there's economies of scale, but not true scalable the way, software is just like, those things go like that.
Yeah. And everybody you're competing against has something similar. They've got their own $1 million machine, maybe a different manufacturer or whatever, but here it is.
And yeah, and I got to it where it's like,
Yeah.
oh, we have the Heidelberg or we have the Komori or whatever, and all people are doing. I was like, well, what's the value they're bringing aside from the printing press to tell you they're printing it on, and dots per inch? I mean, we can all basically get to that. Well, there's nothing. They're just cheaper. I was like, so that's it. Like, I mean, so it got, and you know that the life cycle inside of business from economics 101 is when an industry gets to the point where the only reason a customer makes a decision is money based, that's when it's beyond mature and that industry is about to shut down. And that's the issue is, I mean, you talk to anybody, you said your daughter got you that, for Christmas or whatever, but I mean, I bet you if you talk to her about how excited she is to go to the mailbox and see what's in there from an offer from a marketing standpoint, she's like, Dad, are you kidding me? Like, I get all my bills online. I get this, I get that. Like, and then my friends all do evites. If there's a birthday party, we're doing it through Facebook Messenger or Instagram, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Like, so it's just changed. And that's just the world we live in. And to me, it always goes back to the fundamentals have never changed. The delivery mechanism has just changed. Paper as a mechanism of communication, going back to Gutenberg when he invented the printing press. I mean, you're talking Middle Ages now. That Middle Age technology is just getting dated, and it's just happened so quickly. So,
well,
that was tough convincing all them to go to the software side. That is kind of the net of it all.
Well, I was going to say the printing press at that time when it was invented was really the world's first computer. It was the first. It was the first time that ideas could be shared. Not on a tablet or not on a, written in something like this, or shared around a fire or at the family get-togethers. You could actually share a story, across the world.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry to interject that little.
Yeah, no, exactly. And the interesting thing, people don't know this. So like Xerox, those that know about Xerox or copiers, Kodak, who wasn't just cameras, Kodak had a printing division. Kodak and Xerox in Rochester, New York, both of them were headquartered there. Till Xerox went to Stanford and whatever point in time to Connecticut, but they had all the patents on everything. Xerox actually had the GUI and the touchscreen. They got rid of that, and they came up with the mouse. So they came up with all the stuff that's used in computers today. So everybody thinks Bill Gates did this. Bill Gates did not create Windows. Xerox created Windows. It's amazing. Like, so everybody always thinks, oh, Microsoft and Bill Gates are the greatest ever and all that. And Bill Gates was, of course he's a genius. He was a genius marketer. He was a genius business guy, but he didn't invent any of that stuff. That stuff was all comes out of the printing market. But the Xeroxes and the Kodaks of the world that had all these patents, they sat on it because they wanted to just drive traffic, drive printing, and they didn't want it to create an issue. So emailing and all that Xerox had in the closed loop networks, they didn't want that going on. So because they always had the monitors talking to each other even going back to the 90s. So you could email, pressmen could email each other back and forth through the digital presses. And it was, kind of predated all that stuff, but it was very interesting. They did it in my opinion, I don't know this factually, but I've heard some things to the industry, but they really did it as a very selfish reason, which is understandable. They're a business, but to prevent any kind of competition digitally from coming against paper, because they wanted people to communicate through paper. They had, only 15 years ago, probably they had the market, to where they wanted them. And since then you just look at stock and it's like, and then they're all going. And you see, Quad Graphics is, they can't close plants fast enough. And the magazine industry, which is what, Harry Quadracci built it upon, that's all online, and people are doing, flip books through other stuff. And I don't know where you replace that. So, that was kind of all the stuff that I saw, but it was like, all right, which way do we go? Like you said, survive or thrive, and said, well, let's buy these distressed assets, see if we can get all the software in there first to manage everything. And then we can slowly, get rid of the hard assets over time. And that was kind of the general, plan at a high level for it.
That was interesting what you shared about Xerox. I did not know that.
Yeah.
The Kodak story is sort of universally known, although it's told in a universal way, about they created the digital camera and didn't want to ruin their chemical business and that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. But what you described about Xerox, I think, is a good lesson for everybody here. Like, they created something remarkable and they used it to protect their market instead
Yeah.
of creating a new market for it, is what it sounded like to me, is what you said,
Yeah.
which is what you were looking at doing as well, right? These people are using this software they created for themselves to protect their moat or their business and printing business. But what if you took it and used it differently?
Yeah.
Take the intellectual capital that you create in your own company and then put it into use outside of your own business, right? That's how Bill Gates, maybe became who he's become, because they didn't take wherever they found Windows and say, we're going to use this in our own company and that's it. It's like, no, this is really good. Every company needs this.
And to his credit, he recognized that and took that. That's what's amazing. And that's what I love about Elon Musk, for example, amongst many other things. And he's just, talk about, unbelievably smart and talented and everything else. But his whole thing is like, if it's so great, you shouldn't have to really protect it, give it out. And because, if, Moore's law, the way, technology replaces itself even faster than ever. And, so I'm a big believer in the innovator die, type of concept, because really our world is moving so fast now. Certainly, I think we had a little pause, or whatever you want to call it, as far as speed of business during the pandemic, or maybe we're still kind of a little bit coming out, but I feel like that lull of business of it not moving that same speed, I think we're almost out of it. And, it's going to move faster than ever, because the one thing about the pandemic that people I've not heard a lot of people talk about, but folks that were, maybe somebody like my dad, who's now, 70 years old, who wasn't a guy using Zoom, or would say, why do I have to use Zoom? I'll tell the guy to fly in and we'll talk, or I'll do that, or I'll just make a phone call. Well, now he's like Mr. Zoom, right? And so how many people in that category that were at the back end of their careers are like, I don't need to learn this for the next 5 years because I'm retired by then, or whatever, or that's for them to learn and whatever. And I don't really care. I don't have to because I'm too old, or I don't blah, 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 all that stuff. All those guys, it's almost like everybody learned the same technology. So at least the way I look at it, the way we see it, everybody's very good at their phones now, their smartphones. I think because of the pandemic, in a bit of a way, I hear my mom talk about FaceTime or her friends. I was like, couldn't have gotten you to even try to say that word before the pandemic. So when we look at it for like the company I'm in now, Atlas World Sports, the way we see it is like, well, we would originally have thought the demographic is 21 to 50 years old for that standard kind of male target that we're going after, because 85% of the sports bettors in the United States today are male. That we know is going to change. It's going to become much more female oriented here as it becomes ubiquitous across all the states. But until that occurs, it's the next year or two certainly is predicted to be very male dominated, and then the females will grow significantly, which will be great. But kind of what happened in the fantasy sports. So, the way we see it though is like, now that that maybe the generation that was anti tech, they kind of learned it during the pandemic. And now it's like, well, maybe that 65-year-old guy will download our app and he'll have access to all the sports books around the country that he would have been like, yeah, screw that. I'm not interested in, I'll let my son do that. Or one day my neighbor will tell me or something. And we think that's totally changed. And
and I agree with you. I agree with you. It's particularly, on the Zoom, for example, has created bigger futures for a lot of people who thought their careers were, just about over, right? Now just imagine you're 70 years old. You don't want to get on a plane and go visit customers in China and Indonesia and all these other places. Well, and that's what gets you out of it. You're like, I don't want that grind anymore. I don't want to do that anymore. Well, hey,
Yeah.
all this time I thought I had to do that. Now I've got plenty of opportunity through Zoom and a million of its competitors to
Right.
do exactly what I thought you could never do, which is have me sitting here talking to Bobby Kraft about his success story. And I don't even know where you are. Right? It doesn't matter.
It's good. It's
It doesn't
magic.
matter.
I wish I could tell you I'm next to a palm tree in Costa Rica, but
Yeah. Well,
I
not
do have
yet.
Vince Lombardi looking over my shoulder though. At
Okay.
these times, I'm in my office downtown Milwaukee. So we have Atlas World Sports headquarters in Chicago, and then also a satellite office in Milwaukee too. So I'm back and forth. But today I'm in Milwaukee because I had to be in town for the Packers game, for the first game at least.
Yeah. Okay. That's of course you did. So a couple more things, Bobby.
Yeah.
You mentioned, you got you got the company going, with, with technology as the driver, as opposed to presses as the driver. You're creating this different kind of company. The Great Recession comes along. You mentioned some change in the law that I didn't really get because I don't have the. So tell me the combinations of things that come together that start to, impact the business, the negatively. And then ultimately how you felt as you were going through that whole thing. Because I think that's really something that I've never had to deal with. That I've had to deal with a lot of other stuff, but I never had to deal with that. And I want to know how you felt.
Yeah. Yeah. No, good question, Mike. So the law that changed due to Obamacare, it negated the business of limited medical. So there was a huge business that these insurance companies, Cigna specifically, had a huge, kind of niche in the limited medical. So somebody who worked for Kohl's department stores, Kohl's might give them limited medical because maybe they're a part-time employee, but they'll give them a limited medical option.
Oh, okay. So like health insurance.
Yeah, exactly. So we handled all those communications. But then after Obamacare, that limited medical was deemed illegal. So
because you had to get on. You had to get on.
Yep.
Okay.
You had to get on full insurance. So it's almost illegal for Kohl's to offer it anymore. So you either get on the Obamacare plan or you'd get on, Kohl's had to offer whatever for and I don't know if it was 30 hours or more or whatever it was on a weekly basis. Can't remember the law exactly, but either way, it killed our business. We had over $4 million a year of revenue that was attributed to that, and probably a big portion, of our profits was tied to it, and huge capital expenditure investments because Cigna needed us to have, facilities here or there, and you have to have redundancy because insurance and HIPAA.
Okay.
We're working in the HIPAA world and PHI. So then that goes, and we were already, it's already in the printing industry. So you already have that downward pressure. So now it's, you're getting out there and you already have thin margins as it is, and you're fighting and clawing and scrapping, and every RFP ends up going to bid. And, you think you have a relationship with a customer and they, you invest in them, and then all of a sudden they go, well, our not only give us a deal and they're going to save us 10% over your deal. And you're like, wow, we're already to the bone. We have no margin in this. I don't know how we could compete. So just kind of, got into a game of just cutting lower. And we're careful how we would or would not, get into that game, because we're not, but then you lose certain revenue and you can't fill, so it's just kind of a culmination of things.
Yeah.
It became like Murphy's Law. Anything that could happen would, because it was an industry, quite frankly, that was getting zero talent, to recruit. Imagine trying to recruit a new college graduate to come and work at a printing company, or even if you call it a marketing company, you walk out on the floor and
you see the presses. Yeah, right.
They're going to look at you and go, this is stupid. We studied this in college. We studied these.
Yeah. They'd be like, well, why do you have these?
Yeah. What is that? A fax machine? Is that a giant fax machine? Oh, that is. Right. I've heard about these things. No, this is a printing press, son. So So it was just kind of one of those things. So you're already kind of, there were some very talented people in the industry, but it was interesting because it was like the baby boomers in the industry, they're going to stay in the industry. They're not leaving. But to get Gen X and Gen Y, or excuse me, Gen Z convinced to come into the industry if they weren't in it, the best salespeople were going to pharmaceutical sales or med device sales or going into investment banking.
Yeah, I get it.
But in the 80s, when, the stories that I would hear of yesteryear, of the industry, they were the pharmaceutical industry salespeople that were going into print sales. I mean, that was a big deal. There were huge margins back then. And then the industry just collapsed inside of itself. So, the combination of all those events, and then you try to go out and seek financing. Nobody wants to capitalize a print industry. So you turn and then so when we got to the point where, the only option was to liquidate it, it was really interesting because you learn quickly. I guess I learned, I guess it's like quarterback. So Aaron Rodgers had a tough day yesterday, and like he would probably admit you get more credit for when things go well, and then more blame for when things, go poorly.
Yeah.
It was kind of one of those things where it was just like, everybody stepped back, and it was like they don't know you, and so everybody, it becomes a very lonely island. And and you kind of work through it, and you determine what kind of resolve you have. But it was also the greatest gift too, because it allowed me to say, who really cares about me, right? And I'm not that person. That I don't keep score like that. I don't do that. But the reason I asked that question earlier of you, as far as once you sold your business and you find out the people that need help, but they really don't, but they just want you to make their problems go away because you
Right.
can. Because, oh, Mike, you have the money now to do it, so therefore you should do it. Like, wait, hold on, why? That seems like entitlement to me, but I'm not sure on that definition. Let me check on that. But so the same thing, it was almost like the inverse. It was like what I learned was the people that weren't there, that were always there asking me to help and invest in, or support their charities. And I always did. And I always did it with asking for a thank you or anything. Somebody needed something from me, it's like, absolutely, I'm there. What do you need? Happy to help. Happy to help. Yes. I did deals on personal guarantees, and I did deals on handshakes, and I took care of people and always did. And then when things fell apart, there was nobody there to reach out and give me a hand to help me up. There were a couple people, but of the general public, and it was great. It was very refreshing, actually. Once I got to that point where I looked and I was able to be introspective about it, and I was like, yeah, you know what? Things are going to happen in life. But the best thing is to see who is there, and who really cares, and who steps back and points the finger and goes, oh, it was all his fault. Nobody had anything to do with a failing business in a dying industry. Just that one guy. He's the only reason. Otherwise, we would have had the greatest business ever. Like,
Right.
which
Sure.
it was very freeing though when I got to that point. And it was tough to get to that point because you really are like, what did I do, or what would I do differently? And the truth is, what would I do differently? It would probably be, I just wouldn't have gotten into the industry because it was an awful industry, and it is. And I hate to say it. So people in consumer packaging, that's a good place. But if you're in, just straight printing for direct marketing, people don't leave flyers at meetings anymore. And if they survived even printing, during the pandemic, I mean, when's the last time somebody said, hey, order 10,000 folders for my business so my sales reps can go out and leave these things behind? You have a meeting and somebody says, yeah, just shoot me a PDF and I'll look at it when I'm on the road or up at our cottage or whatever, and I'll put it up in the cloud and check it out, and then we'll talk about doing business, whatever. I mean, everything is so digital, so fluid now. But I didn't think that it was going to be that fast, of an exit. Because I'll admit, even when I was in, probably 08, 09, 10, when the Great Recession hit, I was like, I don't even know I'm in this industry. I didn't even love the industry. I love direct marketing. I love the psychology of business. But the printing thing, I'd go to the print shows and people just wanted to talk about lines per inch. And I just said, guys, I know all that stuff, but that doesn't matter. What matters is what result are you getting on behalf of your clients? Like, Yeah, I could create the ugliest marketing piece, but if it works and it's in black and white, then it's a winner, right? It's about return on investment, not, how it looks, or, it's not about the
Yeah.
nerdy side, if you will, of the industry. So, being now in complete software and an app build and an app development in the sports betting world, it's like the most freeing thing ever, because this is really the position, the journey to where I am now is actually where, if I could have written the perfect scenario, this result is where I would want to be in a perfect scenario. I would have no idea how to map out how the hell I would get here from, if I was 2000 and graduating college. So the road that I took to get here, nobody could have predicted it, but to get here, that to me is what is like the thing that really is like kind of the mind-blowing deal for me to be where I am today. It's like, holy shit, I never could have mapped this out, but I couldn't be more excited for where we are in this industry and the opportunity we have and what we're building, because we're building something that nobody has in the marketplace, and it's going to blow everybody away.
That is another great lesson that you just shared there too, with for entrepreneurs and others. If you think you can't get started until you have the absolute end, you're sure exactly how you're going to get to the end you have in mind, you are never going to start, because
That's right.
Because you can't possibly imagine it until you start on the journey and you start to see all this stuff going on, coming at me, right? Oh, who knew that? But, oh, I met this person, or what?
Yeah.
That you can always keep the end in mind, but how you're going to get there is something you just got to take a first step. You just got to get started, and you just got to experience stuff, and that'll lead you. Ultimately, if you keep at it, that's going to teach you the lessons you need to get to the end that you want. So, I described, and I got this from you, this kayak mixed with Expedia thing about, for Atlas World Sports. What is it exactly, so people know what it is, what they should? You mentioned the app. What is it? Why should they get the app? And then what do they do?
Yeah, no, great question. So in May of 2018, the Supreme Court overturned a law that was in place from Senator Bill Bradley, that was in place since 1992.
A professional athlete, by the way, ironically.
Yeah, yeah, I know. I always thought that was weird too, that Bill Bradley was the guy of all people, but hey, money does funny things to people. And I'm sure he had some very strong lobbyists out of Las Vegas supporting him or something. But,
yeah.
So they overturned that, and basically it said you can't have sports betting outside of Nevada effectively. I mean, there's some outlier cases to that, but in general, that's it. So May of 2018, that gets flipped, and they said everything is good. And then from there, any state can regulate and create an online sports betting scenario or brick and mortar. So it's all free, legal for states to choose, and let's get it above board and tax it. It is, when that law was getting overturned in 2018, it was estimated by the American Gaming Association, it was a $150 billion industry that was underground. So much like cannabis kind of softened the beachhead for our industry, but cannabis is still kind of federally, it's illegal.
It's illegal, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
so it's complicated.
So it's weird. So you have all these people or businesses that are operating legally, say in Colorado, but they can't put their money in a bank account, or you can't use a credit card to buy it, because that would be against, banking laws and interstate commerce, et cetera. So we think that the Supreme Court certainly saw that as becoming a huge issue, because people were betting illegally either through Costa Rican online sports books, or, say Fat Tony's Pizza down the street and doing it. And you just said, this thing's getting out of control. And now that crypto's in, and you can have all this digitization of money moving around. And it was like, you know what, let's legalize this thing, get it above board. Let's tax it. Let's regulate it, and try to create at least a fair environment for this to occur. And it's very bipartisan. And that's what I love about it also. Democrats are in support of it, and Republicans are, because ultimately it was going on no matter what. That was the thing. They couldn't.
And everybody knew it.
And everybody knew it. It was just kind of like turning a blind eye to it. And
they were probably all doing it themselves, the
senators
and Congress people.
I won't say if I know that or not, but yeah.
I said probably, so that's good.
Exactly. It's allegedly, right? But so then that goes, and it makes total sense because it's tax money for the roads, tax money for the schools, and and other programs of you could do addiction programs through it and other things, not just and not just for sports betting or betting in general. You could do addiction programs for drugs and alcohol and other things. So I mean, it's been a great thing. So I saw that and it was time to go. And so we saw it as, look, we're not going to compete with the sports books. There's FanDuel, there's DraftKings, MGM, Caesars, Bet Rivers, etc. I said, who's gonna really be the marketing engine to bring this information of these sports books to any user? So rather than the same way you get on and pick your flights when you go on Expedia or Kayak or whatever else, rather than just doing it for only your flights and your travel and hotels, what if there was one specifically just for sports and sports books? And then, of course, our foundation of it is just making sure we're going to be the best sports app. We're going to give you all the scores. We're going to allow you to track your favorite players, your teams. We're going to give you the AP stories as well. And then as the pyramid builds up, then we're going to have that layer where we're giving you the integration to all the sports books. And then above that, our 3.0, which will be launched in the first quarter of 22. We actually have machine learning where we're going to tell you who's going to win every game. We're going to play every game 10,000 times with our algorithm. So it's all machine learning based. And then our 4.0, we're going to have, give the ability for all the users to then have personalized highlight reels for either their fantasy players or their teams. And we're going to compile all that. We're going to compress it and deliver it to them. And we have all kinds of other things. We have other, in updates coming through. We'll have social chat functionality where people can then have just their buddies tagged. So then they can just do chat within our app about games. So rather than having to leave and text it or, push it through some other social media, we'll allow people to integrate, and interface each other within our app. So that's kind of our roadmap all the way through next summer, call it Q2 of 22. We have our 4.0 already mapped out, our version 4.0, and 2.0 will come out just next month from now.
And so the revenue model then is the sports book. You drive traffic to the sports book, and then there's a fee for that they pay back to you. Okay.
Yep, that's right. We have 4 revenue models, 3 that we're really working after. So the first would certainly be we get affiliate revenue. We're an affiliate marketing engine. So based on licensing and every bet that goes through, we're then able to get just a fraction, and all it is just a little fee for just driving that traffic. But as you know, that those fees add up significantly
of course
over time. Talk about scalable, but yeah, it's a fixed percentage from the sports books that we get, or actually from the handle. And along with that, we also get referral fees. So anybody who doesn't have a sports book account with Caesars, and we drive you to Caesars and you open an account, we get pretty good fees for that too. And then so the second revenue model then is a subscription base. And we're going to do your classic bronze, silver, gold, and like $5, $10, $20 a month. And instead of calling it bronze, silver, and gold, though, we're going to call it rookie, veteran, Hall of Fame. Going to have a little, fun with it.
Yeah.
But at the highest level, they're going to get access to the best sports bet pickers, or sharps, if you will. They'll get access to the best ones for free once they've already paid into their subscription, because we're going to buy those guys in bulk, basically, and then deliver that to the masses.
And then you said earlier there's a loyalty component to this too.
Yeah, and then we'll tie in all those things. We already have a deal done with American Express, so I can announce that publicly. So we have the ability then, when people sign up for subscriptions, to actually give them gift cards back on behalf of American Express. And we get that at a fraction because of our deal. We get just a great deal because of American Express and our partnerships. We can use their logo however we want now, and we have some other big brands we're in talks with as well from a national standpoint. And then the third revenue stream would be in-app purchases. Bucks win the championship, you get all of a sudden maybe Fanatic sends something through us where you want to buy a Giannis jersey or a championship t-shirt or whatever. We would certainly get 10%, 20% back on that, depending on how we drive the sale. And then the fourth revenue line is advertising, but we're going to do everything we can to hold that off as long as possible. And in fact, if we can always prevent it, we will, because personally, as a user of apps and loving sports apps and everything, I don't really want to see advertisements pop up in the middle of when I'm trying to look at game information or whatever. But those are the four lines though, from a revenue standpoint.
And this is my last question, I think. How does when you get the machine learning going and you're basically, guaranteeing you're picking the winner, what happens there? I'm thinking about those old school things where you had to like pay with your credit card and call and listen to a voicemail where the guy would tell you the picks of the week or something like that.
Yeah, well, kind of. So, but really what we'll do, we'll just give them that information because we don't take the picks. So
yeah,
that's the one thing. So you'll see the lines, you'll see the DraftKings line, you'll see the FanDuel line, and we might say that line that MGM is giving, Packers play the Lions next week, Monday night. So I don't know what the opening line is, but maybe that's the one where the Packers are giving the least amount of points. And then our model says to take the Packers given the points because our model says it's got a 65% confidence rating that the Packers will cover that spread. And so we say that and do that. And then that's when you click it and it takes you right into MGM and then you place your bet with MGM. So we're not getting into fintech. We're staying outside of that. We're just driving traffic. We're really, accelerating the clicks and the activity, and we'll be communicating with people on a regular basis. Because the truth is, we're agnostic to all the sports books, and those guys all like us because we're going to drive you to Caesars one day, and the next day we'll drive you to MGM. Caesars understands that. I mean, there will be loyalty within those components that somebody will say, well, all else being equal, I'm going to make my bet with Caesars because I'm going to get some loyalty points with them. And eventually I'll have a trip out to Las Vegas on Caesars. But outside of those folks, the Caesars and MGMs, they know as long as we're kind of keeping people just thinking about them on a regular basis, it's like, think about beer. I mean, the microbrews and that huge movement of getting your IPAs. Well, they'd almost rather you just think about IPAs and checking out microbrews around the country rather than saying, I hate microbrews. I only want Coors Lights or Miller Lights or Bud Lights or whatever. I think the guys that do the microbrews and the IPAs all around, they'd rather you be kind of in that culture so that when you're in town in Denver or you're in town in Chicago or Milwaukee, you're checking out Lakefront Brewery or trying out new ones. And I think that's the way the sports books have talked to us about it, at least. So at this point, they know that we're just there to drive traffic to them. So we're going to be agnostic, and the numbers are what they are, the way they publish.
Yeah. So you're building a community of people who come to Atlas World Sports because they like the community, they like the interaction, they like the value, the tips, all of this stuff. And they like that they can come in through you and then they can go where they want.
Right.
To make a bet or whatever.
That's right.
Yeah, cool.
That's right.
All right. So is the app called Atlas World Sports?
Yeah. So the app is Atlas World Sports, 3 words. We are not pushing our marketing in the app stores till probably November 1st. So you actually have to type in the words correctly. Otherwise it probably won't populate yet. Because if you just type in Atlas, it'll probably just have like Rand McNally pop up for you or something like that.
Okay.
Or whatever else. But then in November, that's when we open up our marketing and we launch that because we want to get to our 2.0 with all the sports books integrated. So we're using this right now, this 6-week period, if you will, to just test and allow friends and family downloading it. So make sure everybody types it in properly and they'll get it.
Okay.
Otherwise, in November, we'll find you.
All right. So you're using the remarkable 2.0 method there. I like it.
Yeah, exactly.
Bobby, this has been so much fun catching up with you. Congratulations on Atlas World Sports. And thank you for taking us through so much of your journey. I know we didn't cover all of your journey, but so much of your journey. There's just a lot of stuff there for everyone to learn and appreciate about you and about all the experiences that you've had and your success as well. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much, Mike. I appreciate it. And I've enjoyed your podcast, first of all, but then also your true life experience and learning from your journey and success. And I appreciate you being a friend and always continue to follow your example along the way. So thanks for having me today. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the How'd It Happen podcast, where we believe that success doesn't happen unless you make it happen. You can subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, or wherever you like to listen. And while you're there, please rate it and leave a comment as well. I'd love to hear your thoughts about the show, ideas for future guests, or whatever you'd like to share. And of course, you can always find me at MikeMalatesta.com. See you next time. Thanks again for listening to the How'd It Happen podcast.